Hello and welcome everyone back to Adobe Live. My name is Voodoo Val and I get to host Hank Washington, the one and only this morning. Hank, how are you doing this morning?
Hello, good morning, good morning. Well, good afternoon where I am. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. It's good to be back with you, Val, and I'm ready to have some fun today.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. I just know it. We've been powing around, hanging out behind the scenes, so can't wait to bring this energy to the live stream. But before we
Absolutely.
dive into a little bit more about Hank and what we have planned today, I would love to remind you all to hit that follow button on the YouTube channel for our Adobe Live channel over there. Stay up to date on all the cool stuff that we're doing over here on Adobe Live. Also, if you are into graphic design, if you're looking to scrub up on your skills, or you're looking to dive into it maybe for the first time, we have got so much content planned for you this week. We've got boot camps going on with Jordan and Katrina, Adobe Express boot camps, and we also have some awesome master classes for graphic design happening at the end of the week, so definitely check those out. And without further ado, why don't we head over and check out your work, Hank? Why don't you tell us a little bit about you, show us some work that you've done, and give us the sitch on what we're going to be diving into for our project today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world and watching the stream. My name is Hank Washington. I am a art director, designer, and illustrator, pretty much an overall creative. Born and raised out of Mississippi, but currently building here in Atlanta, Georgia. As you guys can see here on the screen, like this is my Behance, so you guys can see some of the work I've done over the past years. I've been designing for roughly about 10 years now, illustrating for fun, illustrating for clients, designing for clients, designing for fun, and just been creating. Been lucky enough to know you, Val, for a long time, and of course being a part of the Adobe fam. So it's always been fun to create over the years and just create for different people, and really just have fun with this. To be able to do this, as a lifestyle and as a pretty much as a career is nothing short of a blessing. So yeah, and
I
I'm
love
just
it.
scrolling here a little bit of my work here on my Behance. So if you
That's
guys are
that
on Behance.
project. That's that project I was looking at. Like, all of this looks delicious. This is so good. I would love to see some emojis in the chat if you guys also think that this work looks like low key, high key, tasty. I need to know. I need to know. All right, let's see some more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you kind of see just this is pretty much a melting pot of just some of the work I've done in the past couple of years. I kind of take pride in not necessarily having a niche as far as like a type of medium. But I do consider my style essentially bold and very bright. And as what I'm hearing now is like I guess I need to add tasty on there as
You need
well.
to. You need to.
um but yeah, but these are just a couple of projects. And again, if you're on Behance, you can check out and really see them through there. And you also can check out my brand studio. Again, I'm the founder and owner of Hank Design Studio, which is a studio that turns strangers into friends with design. Again, this is everything from brand identity work to campaign identity, to illustration work, and pretty much is art direction for any type of goals that a brand wants to accomplish. So you'll see some very like similar projects, and there's a little bit more here than you will see on my Behance. But again, if you guys want to learn a little bit more about me and my studio specifically, go check out hankdesigns.com. And then lastly, I'm also the founder of a project called Fuzzies. So if you guys have followed me on Instagram, if you followed me on just social media in general, you've probably seen these weird little characters with these donut mouths, and some people describe them as Cheeto eyebrows, so to say. But it become a fun illustration project that's turned into its own universe. So you guys can go to fuzzies.co to learn a little bit more about this project specifically, some of the projects Fuzzies I've drawn in the past, and just a little bit more about our mission. And of course, we have a shop there, so just go make sure you go check it out. I actually have a little bit of the swag on today, so
Yeah.
go make sure you go grab you at least a hoodie or something. I know it's spring, but if you like to sit inside and have your air conditioning blasting and still have a hoodie on, feel free to do that. But
As a hermit artist, I can say I need hoodies all year round. So it's,
yeah.
I'm gonna get me a hoodie for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, this is a project that's been going on for a few years now. But again, it's all culture focused. It's just a way that we can all see ourselves in a way in a different light. That's brings a personality out through color and texture. So
Loving
definitely
it.
go check that out on fuzzies.co. And then of course you can also follow me on Instagram, where you can also see some more fuzzies and a little bit more of my life in general, at fuzzies.co on Instagram. So go make sure you go follow, check out those sites. And yeah, that is pretty much me in a nutshell.
Awesome, awesome. I love it. Yeah, definitely give Hank a follow. And what are we diving into today? What are we taking a bite out of today?
Yes. Okay. All right. We good. All right. All right. Awesome. Sweet. Yeah, so today, because it is Black History Month and I am a sports fanatic, semi-sports fanatic, today we're actually going to be drawing fuzzies. I know we kind of heard that word thrown around in the first like 5 minutes of the live stream, but today we're going to draw a special fuzzy of LeBron James. So
Mm.
if you guys, even if you're not into NBA or heavy basketball fan, but there was history made this month with LeBron James where he turned into the all-time NBA leading scorer, like just
Mm.
literally broke that record this month, which was huge. For me as someone who loves sports, as me as someone who's a fan of LeBron James, and also someone who's a fan of the Lakers, of course, is it was a big moment, and I thought that this was the right moment to recreate this. I have done this type of piece in the past, but I think with just everything going on, it just makes more sense to,
Mm-hmm.
bring this concept back to life. So
For sure,
that's
for
what we're going to
sure.
work on today.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. I love the colors you got going on. And so we're gonna do kind of a dueling like multi-app workflow today, right? You're gonna show us a little bit in Illustrator, and then we're gonna be moving into Photoshop. And I'm really curious about this process. Are these two programs that you always use together, or is it just for specific kinds of projects? Do you kind of
Mhm.
deviate from this process every once in a while, or share some thoughts about that because we've got some different programs going on today.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really a mixture of all of those, right? So there are, I would say, majority of cases require the combination of Illustrator and Photoshop.
Hmm.
Usually with a lot of branding work, and if anyone's out there as a brand designer or becoming more of a brand designer, you probably create a lot of your work in vector-based, formats and things like that. And of course, when there's things like mockups, or we want to kind of create like some type of manipulation, we want to go pixel based. So like that
Hmm.
Photoshop does handle that really well. So
Mm.
a lot of cases, even specifically around this type of project that we're working on today, does require a lot of the combination between Illustrator and Photoshop, just because of the different capabilities that they both have, and they are kind of like a yin and yang, specifically for me,
Hmm.
to bring things to life that I wouldn't normally do in Illustrator or Photoshop alone.
Love it.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. Let us know in the
yeah,
chat if you guys do a multi-app workflow as well.
absolutely. Yeah, so to get started here, I wanted you guys to show you a little bit of behind the scenes of the prepping for this file. So you can see here to the far left, I just took a random sketch, took a picture of it, whether if you're using it on your iPad or your sketchbook, however you see fit. But in this case, I just took a picture of a sketch. It doesn't have to be clean, but I brought it in here to Photoshop. I mean, I'm sorry, to Illustrator. I'm gonna get those mixed up today. Um, and just vectored it out, right? So nothing in here is pretty extreme. All of these are just, simple shapes. You can see we got rectangles here, a little bit of custom shapes here, circles, our donuts, our Cheetos, pretty much the whole structure of the build right here.
Hmm.
And of course, we have a couple color palettes here that are pulled from Adobe Cooler, which gave a lot of great combinations of color schemes that we can kind of make sense of, of our overall color palette theme here. Yeah, and just building that out here. And of course, when it comes to our layers, we want to make sure that we separate everything, right? So we want to make sure pretty much our body parts are on their own separate layer. And
Hmm.
this will make the workflow much, much smoother in Photoshop as you transfer your file over.
Nice, nice. Yeah.
And the way that we did that, and I'll demonstrate it here just a little bit, but we already have it open on our Photoshop file, but it's just as simple as you going up to File, go down to export, export as. And when you're pulling up, you obviously get your windows and things here, but you can also just simply go down here to Photoshop you can click your artboard, make sure that's selected. And once you hit export, you have another window here, and you want to make sure that you want it to write layers. So that way you have all your layers there, and it'll pull all of them into Photoshop once you open the file. And it makes it, you know, much seamless once you actually get into like adding more depth and really more what we're going to do today. So
absolutely. That's very clean, very convenient too to jump in there. So I probably will try out this because I have never used that particular feature in Illustrator, but I might go ahead and test that out myself.
There you go. Now it's going to be awesome. And it's a really neat process if you ever want to, you know, like you said, cross these different platforms with each other. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. This is the build of what we did here in Illustrator. So we're going to jump over here to Photoshop now. And as you can see, pretty much all my layers here are identical to what we had in Illustrator. So we can go in and we can see that all our color palette is pretty much on there. Our elements, our body parts and everything on there is there as well. So pretty much that really makes it seamless if you ever want to just transfer a file back and forth from Photoshop to Illustrator or Illustrator to Photoshop. Yeah. So what we're going to do here is, as you can see, I have my background as the same color as pretty much the skin tone of LeBron here. We'll call him LaFuzz for today.
LaFuzz, yeah.
LaFuzz. So that's a personal taste of mine. I really enjoy like bringing these images from the background, but also have like a close relationship with them. So usually I try to keep them as the same color or pull it from the same palette. So just again, just so no confusion, we still have our body parts here. So trust me, it's still there.
Okay. I like it though, like, you know, the concept of having something in the character the same color as the background, because it really makes it look like it's all one. In that way, which I think is a really nice touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of satisfying to see it like appear from the background. Usually I like to keep it like this and work, and it kind of gives that illusion of something like literally coming from the background in this, but you'll see what I mean here in a second. So yeah, so what we're going to go into here now is we're going to start adding our texture or start adding depth. Again, we do have our color palette here to the right, so I'm just going to be pulling colors from there. And usually I like to keep colors from the original piece and just utilize either blend modes or just different tones of those colors to keep it all like in harmony in a sense like that. So what I'm gonna do up here is, one, I want to make sure up my top left that I have this little auto select section here. I want to put it on layer, and this makes it easier if I ever want to select something specific. You can see that on my layer tab, it jumps right to that specific part. And because we don't have too many parts here, it's much easier to kind of navigate around versus searching for everything.
Yeah, when you have like really big files and you need to navigate, especially if you're like me and you don't necessarily name your layers perfectly when you have giant, you know, if I have to share it with somebody, I'll name them. But if I don't have to share it with you,
exactly,
my files are a mess. So being able to click, you know, and navigate exactly to where you need to go is a huge time saver. And I feel like you focus more on the enjoyment of creating the work rather than hunting for things, you know, in a file. So
absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. I think it's definitely in the context of how you're planning on utilizing the file. If you're in collaboration, definitely name your files.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah, do not upset your animators or your whoever you're working with or anyone. But in the case, yeah, when we're at home, like we're gonna be rebels out here. We're not gonna follow all the rules.
I would love to know from folks in the chat, number one, how y'all are doing today, and number two, do you guys name your files religiously, or do you only name them when you have to send them to clients, or is it just a mess either way and you get those emails where it's like, please don't do this to me. I can't name your files. I gotta know. Hook us up with the details. And I love this color that you're adding here. So you're kind of adding that inside color from the crown to the outside there, and that blend already is really unique. And I love it.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is just kind of again, you can start seeing how it starts to round out that shape a lot more. And again, I'm not going kind of too far into like a different palette or anything else. I'm just really utilizing the colors that are already present there just to keep it kind of, you know, in a type of harmony here. So what I'm doing, and the way I've gotten here is simply I just went to that layer, and if you hit Command, if you're on a Mac, if you select kind of the thumbnail in that layer panel, it'll give you the selection tool and basically isolates that area. And all I did was add a layer on top of that, and now it gives me this area to kind of freely, draw in. And basically you can see that I can draw all out here, and it doesn't affect anything until like I'm in the actual space.
Excellent
Um,
tip. Excellent tip.
Exactly. So this gives you a lot of room to like kind of think freely, just, have to be so clean and everything else. But again, I'm just kind of going in, just adding a little bit of depth and rounding out this texture here. And what I'm going to do is grab this bang color here and kind of add like just a subtle backlight onto this.
And it's, adding, I feel like you're really, really good at layering the colors and layering the values because you use the same brush with a different combination of color, but placing those values in the right way. Just that little like rim light there on the edge, kind of bringing that light yellow back in instantly. I'm like, this is a gold crown.
Exactly.
That's what it feels like to me when we started out with a flat shape. So I love to see it come together. I feel like you're a master of value here, and it's looking good. Also, we got some folks in the chat saying #team name your layers. Wade says always organize everything when working with others.
Yes.
Frank says I name everything even for myself. I aspire to be like you. I aspire to that. Julie says she names the folders, so at least I know where I am generally. I think that makes sense. I definitely name folders, so I'm just like, this is the folder for the crown, and I couldn't tell you how to navigate through it, but at least you know everything in here is what makes the crown.
Exactly. No, shout out to those who do that just for their sanity, and like, you are a trooper. So I'm 100% jealous.
Absolutely. So I love the spotlighting that you're adding. This is so great. I have a question for you, just as you start to kind of add textures to some of these shapes here. One of the things that I think is really, really awesome about your work and your presence online, just aside from like the fabulous illustrations and things that you do, is that you present your work really, really well. Like you have these great case studies, and I feel like when I go to look at your work, I don't just see an illustration, I see it presented to me in so many different ways, that I feel like really makes your like social media presence and your portfolio stick out from a lot of other illustration portfolios and social profiles. Do you have any advice for those of us looking to improve our social media presence, or advice for how to present your art? Like, what do you keep in mind when you're presenting illustrations?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Well, first off, thank you. I really do appreciate that. Yeah, so a little bit about like my history. So when I first got into the space of just design in general, one of my first jobs was working at an agency. So I used to work for a social media agency back in Mississippi, and it was a startup. And the one thing that a lot of agencies, and you probably see it now, is they pride themselves on case studies. So when they're talking about work and they're bidding for projects or certain opportunities, the one that they take pride in is how they talk about case studies. And in principle, it's easy to show, like you said, like just having like pretty pictures, pretty things, and kind of the final piece there, which is nice. But what I've learned is that people really enjoy how you get there. And that's kind of what I took when I started to go independent, is just taking that principle of, okay, you can see this final piece. It's like you go to a museum, you see the final piece, but if you were able to watch a little bit about, okay, what inspired this specific idea? Was there a moment that, you walk into the park, or, you're at home playing a game or watching a show or something like that? Like, what sparked that idea? How did you transform that into a concept? What was the idea of sketching? Like, all those things can really either inspire whoever is in that space with you that wants to kind of create something similar or something just as beautiful, or even for anyone that's not necessarily familiar with what that process looks like, they can get insight on what it actually takes to get to that certain type of idea. And And a lot of that you can apply, if you ever watch anyone that's like showcasing branding work, usually those are kind of like very heavy pitches, especially when you're doing like identity concepts. You usually got to kind of address some of the things that you already discussed, whether you have discovery, any type of meetings that you have, is usually there's a lot of recap. But you can apply that same principle as an illustrator to say, okay, this is a piece. You can have a kind of a structured write-up. And if you don't know, if you're not like a writer, you could probably partner with someone, maybe trade, or, or hire a writer that can really shape literally what you were thinking in your head and basically lay out that whole story. Because again, it's just like if you open a storybook and in the first page is the plot. Like if you see like the finale on the first page, like the book is already over, but you build up that whole story to get to the actual plot, and then you get to the finale. It makes you curious and waiting for the next book or next show or whatever the case want to be.
That's a great analogy right there, because I feel like, to me, that analogy is like, take them on an adventure,
Exactly.
lead them on a journey. And that's great advice. That's fabulous. Also, Wade A. Cuff in the chat saying, "Oh, Hank, can you share the name of the company in Mississippi? Just a little local curiosity. Are you in Mississippi? Wade, is that? Ooh, I mean, if you're comfortable, if you want to talk about it, Hank, I think we have some Mississippi folks in the chat who were curious."
Oh, nice. Well, shout out Mississippi. So the company is not there anymore. They're actually here in Atlanta, but they've grown. It's called Socially In. So Social LYIN. But they're a great group of guys. I was lucky enough to work with them very early on. They've grown and done, amazing things over time. But that was kind of my first, I guess you could say, quote unquote, professional design opportunity there. But unfortunately, they're no longer there. I think there are still some great studios and agencies that are still in Mississippi creating amazing things. But that was my first opportunity, and they've, since grown and moved on out of the state as well.
Nice. Awesome. We've got a lot of folks talking about layering still. A lot of layering. Frog says, "Sometimes I name my layers, but I'm the only one who understands what the name means." I feel you. I do.
You do not feel alone.
I've got layers in my Photoshop files for like blending modes that says like, this is what makes it glow. This is, don't delete.
Do not. Yes, that's probably my favorite. It's like, please do not delete.
I usually
can't tell you
do
how
like
many projects I've done that.
Oh yeah, and sometimes you can do it by accident, but sometimes when I have a layer that's a blending mode and the color I put on a blending mode is super bright, the icon for that layer looks like there's nothing on the layer.
Yeah.
Because it's like white or it's like a super light yellow or something. So I'll just type "do not delete." And then if anybody gets that file and I don't change it, they're like, "Why? What will happen?"
Exactly. I can't tell you how many times I've done that where it's like you have this super complex layered file and you're like, I don't need this layer. Let me throw this away. And then it goes, especially it goes to animation. It's like, I think we're missing something here.
What could it be? Oops. Could it be the 40 different layers I just like cleared out of the layer list? I thought they were useless because sometimes sometimes I just like do the hotkey to make a new layer real quick. And then I'm like, oh, actually, I want to add something to this layer first. And then I go back and add another layer to do what I was doing before. And I end up with like 20 empty layers that are just called like layer 47, layer 47 copy. We're still empty. We're still this looks so good. So these are the Cheeto brows, right? These are like the puff brows. I love it. I love the you know what I really like about the way that you shade, because sometimes I really enjoy shading with like a texture like this with big shapes and things, but you're more daring than I am, because I always use, like, if I'm going to shade a purple shape like this, I will only use shades of purple, but you have this yellow added to it where you kind of incorporate and merge all of the colors from your color palette to make it look even more cohesive, and I find that really inspiring. I feel like I need to be more flexible with what I allow myself to shade with, because this looks really good.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And, there's no right or wrong way that you can approach this. It's really just what makes you feel comfortable. I even remember on the last live stream, I actually learned a lot just from the chat of just like how to utilize blending modes for some of this, and I never would have figured that would be like an option for me specifically, but like you never know what you can really learn, but um it's just really what makes you comfortable. And like I said, with purples, yeah, typically, I try to keep it within that. But with these characters, just the kind of the way that they're built and just like the way I'm kind of like I picture them in any scenario is that they have this kind of sheen to them. So because of their shapes are so bold and round and things like that, I try to think of like how light can be exaggerated. And of course, this is not like surrealism or anything like, like what we could like Rembrandt or anything like that, or any type of way we had to teach light, but the idea of just like how these characters can really absorb light, refract it, and things like that, it makes it fun, and it's almost like a science experiment. Like we can literally get in here and like literally have some fun with how these light plays on different surfaces, and you can kind of learn a little bit as you're developing your style and everything else. But no, there's no wrong way to do this. It's literally what feels comfortable, and it's art, like who's gonna tell you art is wrong?
Yeah, right. I feel like if anybody does, I'm worried for them. I'm worried for that person.
Exactly.
I would love to know, because you have, looking through your portfolio, I feel like you have used every color there is to use. Like your work is so bold and powerful, but if you had to choose like a color palette or maybe a few shades to work within, do you have favorites that you love to work with, or could you just not even choose?
Oh my God, I feel like if I choose now, I'm gonna look back on the stream and be like, Hank, why did you say that? Like, you're not gonna use that in the next like in the next like 10 years. Like, come on, man, what are you thinking?
Maybe a challenge, you could challenge yourself. Well, I said it on Adobe Live, so this has to be my favorite color now.
Exactly. I will say the colors that I have gravitated towards a lot lately has been more kind of like yellows and a little bit of like fuchsia kind of colors type things.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, just that combination just feels, I don't know, it feels good. I never wanted to create with these characters specifically. I never wanted to create them in a way that they don't kind of give out this positive ambiance, whatever, however you may think of that. But for me, I think those colors kind of force you to look at kind of the bright side of things, and regardless with these characters. So I would say kind of like a yellow and like a fuchsia color. That'll be my answer for 1:58 p.m. Eastern time on
all right
February 27th.
Mark it. I'm putting it down in my notes, and I'm going to refer to this annually to see if it still rings true.
Right.
That's you signed yourself up for a yearly check-in with this. No, I feel like I have some favorite colors too. I'm sure it's a surprise to no one that I love working with purple. Like black, charcoal, purple, and like burnt orange are my go-to. But I feel like I'm the opposite, where you seem like you have seasons, with your favorite colors. Like you go through phases and seasons, and you have the colors that you really enjoy that you might return to, but you use a lot. I have to receive phone calls from my mother saying, why is everything purple? Can you change it up? Maybe some green for once, maybe some yellow for one. And I'm like, all right, maybe I will add.
Perhaps, maybe mom.
Mother.
Maybe mom. Asking for a lot here.
Yeah. I'm Voodoo Val, and Voodoo Val likes purple. It's part of my brand. And she was like, it's just purple. It's like my mother keeps me humble.
I respect that. Shout out, mom. I appreciate pushing the boundaries. I get it.
Yep. Also, we got Robzilla in the house. Welcome in, Rob. It's so good to see you.
Shout out, Rob.
Let's see. We've got a lot of talk about like surreal art and stuff. Frank says, love the way you give 3D look, Hank. Love looks like inflate effect in AI, but with a bit of texture. And I feel like, you have so much work where some of it looks more like it's on like the glossy 3D side, and some of
Hmm.
it looks more like it's the texture side. But I feel like your ability to give depth to things, and I have not seen an illustration from you that doesn't make me feel either like I want to eat it, or like I could pick it up with my hands and hold a physical object, even though it's a
Yeah.
2D illustration. So I feel it for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That means I'm doing it right. I feel
Yeah,
good about that.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, Also, I would like to ask. I'm actually going to pull up your portfolio myself here,
Yeah.
just as you kind of make your way through. Let me come in here and snag this link, because I was on your Instagram today, and I was looking around at all of your awesome content, and I was looking and I see like, you have a lot of your illustrations posted, just, like posting just the art,
Hmm.
but I noticed you make a lot of reels and stuff, and I wonder, with all of your animations for your illustrations and all of this being presented as animated reels or processes and stuff, um did you, when you first started doing this, did you intend for them all to be animated, or has the element of animating them and the element of adding all of this extra to the illustrations just something that developed for you over time?
Definitely over time. Starting developing like these characters and just putting them kind of in these different worlds
Mm-hmm.
was kind of, it was really honestly an escape. When
Mm,
I was working, back when I was working with an agency, a lot of my day-to-days was around, a lot of branding work, client work, things like that. And I wanted to get back into illustration.
mm-hmm.
So they didn't necessarily have a purpose past, okay, I'm just gonna draw these and share these online. Like it was pretty
Mm-hmm.
much like I just need to do something to, show the range in a sense like that.
Mm-hmm.
But luckily a buddy of mine, shout out to him, Raheem Robinson, he's great, talented animator. And my fiance, Alexis Roberts, who's also has been on the stream here,
Mm-hmm.
has
Mm-hmm.
always encouraged me to push this type of illustrations further than kind of what I was picturing them at the time. Cause I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to draw these and share these.
Mm-hmm.
But I was asking questions of like, how would these characters move? Like what it would be like for them to, we see the personality and the color, maybe in the facial expressions, but like, how does motion tell that same type of story?
Mm-hmm.
Which got me thinking of like, okay, that's a really great question. Like, what does that actually mean for some of these characters? So partnered with my buddy Raheem, and he took the liberty of animating a lot of my earlier ones for me, just to kind of give me just insight on like what they could potentially be, and then I explore a little bit of
Mm.
animating them as well, and it really kind of shaped like what these characters like truly are as from a personality standpoint. And
Mm-hmm.
again, these are culture focused, so a lot of them kind of have these head turns and these nodding and kind of
Mm-hmm.
like they're listening to music, but ultimately it's just again just to give that personality. So at first that wasn't the intention, but over time it did like push me to say, okay, these can be more than just static images, and if
Mm.
that's the case, like how far can we actually take it before it doesn't make sense anymore? And
Yeah.
so far it just it hasn't made sense not to add some depth to these characters when it comes to motion.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I see now with that element of animation, even when I'm not looking at them animated, I can still see them bouncing and nodding and turning and doing all that stuff.
Hmm.
Like it's really become an iconic part of the Fuzzies in general to me,
Hmm.
because I feel like the movement that became, I guess you might say, like the Fuzzies movement, the
Yeah.
because I feel like it's an iconic kind of, you know swagger they have, and I feel like that
Hmm.
has become the Fuzzies movement to me. Like, and when I see other things animated in a similar way, I just think of Hank. Like,
I
this
appreciate
is
that. No,
very
that's awesome.
iconic.
That's awesome. That makes me feel good. It's like I'm happy that it's turning into kind of its own universe and a brand. So, it feels good to know that people can be reminded of these characters, and hopefully, that's the name. It keeps them feeling, that warm and fuzzy feeling as well.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I love how you're starting to really add some shadow here to the skin, and I feel like this is becoming, I mean, it was cool before, but now it's got some serious impact where you have
Hmm.
like those places where, you know, you still see the color of the background, but with the shading and stuff, it really kind of pops it out. And that's one of my favorite parts of watching you work specifically, is like just seeing something like suddenly this has appeared, you know,
Yeah.
with some, you know, masterfully placed value and shading. I feel like all of a sudden I can see his ear pop out, and it just looks so cool.
Hmm.
And now you have a lot of characters and stuff, and you've done a lot of different kinds of characters, a lot of different, I feel like, outfits, and he'll have a lot of different accessories when it comes to putting your characters together, like the crown here and everything,
Hmm.
for our guy here. But do you have like favorite kinds of accessories or favorite kinds of shapes that you love to detail, or
Hmm.
is it all, you know, fuzzy shapes to you and it's all,
Hmm.
you know, feels the same?
That's a really great question. Accessories with these characters is probably my favorite part.
Mm,
I draw a lot of inspiration just from Black women in general, and like I love just the way they, you know, they express themselves and just the way
mm,
they dress and everything else. And one of my favorite elements I really love to draw is actually earrings or jewelry type of
mm-hmm,
things. I have a couple characters, and again, a lot of these are sometimes inspired by real people. It's like that
mm-hmm,
I've encountered over the years. And I really enjoy just the way, just from a fashion sense, how people are able to put these accessories together,
mm-hmm,
and drawing them just adds just another layer of depth.
mm-hmm.
But you know, again, with these characters, because they have so like pretty much the same features, all, you know, from an anatomy standpoint, I think accessories is really what gives them like a different layer of character that is my personal favorite, because you can really add them kind of like this gold sheen where they have like really nice glasses, really like bold earrings. And I think it just adds another layer of just like attitude and vernacular and just pretty much overall swag, that's much deeper than just the anatomy of them, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's a really
Love
good
it.
question. I've never got asked that, for sure. So I appreciate
Well,
that.
I consider that a win. But yeah, let's
1000%.
yeah, let's keep going here. And I'm just loving it's very satisfying to like
Hmm.
just watch it all um come together. I'm gonna
Yeah.
take a look at the chat, see what's going on there, let you work. A lot of excitement in the chat. A lot of lightning bolts from Robzilla.
Shout out Robzilla. Robzilla was a really big inspiration for me too, from an illustration standpoint. So
Mm,
Rob, trust me, man, you set the tone. Um, and he really gave. My first time hearing him speak was at Creative South. If you guys are
mm,
not familiar, Creative South, really great conference here in Columbus, Georgia. And he made a comment about hiring yourself. He said, you know,
mm.
because a lot of artists, you know, we can't create on our own, but obviously it's a different feeling when we can create for other people and we get commissioned for work. But you know, when that slows down, you want to make sure you take advantage of the idea that you are a client as well. So if you ever need that inspiration, or you just want to create that next opportunity, he said, man, just hire yourself. Like, how would you
Mm-hmm.
hire yourself, and like, you know, reward yourself to create something that you would do for anyone else?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's great advice. I love that.
so shout out Rob. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I got to meet him in person for the first time at this past Adobe Max, and that was an absolute treat. It was great
Oh,
to
that's
see you.
awesome. That's
Um,
awesome.
Also, just a little reminder for those who are hanging out with us in the chat. We have a link up above the chat pod if you folks would like to submit any recommendations for guests for Adobe Live. You can submit friends of yours, artists you would love to see on the broadcast here. You can even nominate yourself if you think that you would love to show us your stuff, show us your portfolio. So definitely check out that tab up there next to info called guest recommendations. We would love to hear from you and see your favorite artists and see your portfolio as well.
Absolutely. And request Voodoo Val to be your host. It's worth it. It's worth
Thank you
it.
so much. I really, that makes me feel so wonderful.
Absolutely. No, that's it's definitely always a time when we get to do the streams.
We always have a good time.
Absolutely.
I feel like sometimes I like guilty because we're working, but it does just feels like I'm hanging out with friends, you know?
Exactly.
Like, am I supposed to be having this much fun at work? I don't know. I don't know if
Yeah.
this is allowed.
Right. No, it definitely feels guilty, but no, that's how you know you're in the right place. That's exactly where you can find what is it called, like ikigai, like where you can really do something
Mm-hmm.
that nice balance. I know it probably doesn't apply to that principle specifically, but it's a good place of zen, good
Yeah,
balance.
absolutely, absolutely. I feel it. And I love this kind of a warmer orange yellow color we're adding into
Mhm.
the eyes here, kind of bringing that value in. And I think one of the most satisfying things as you make your way through this process is like seeing when the moment the flat shape starts to like transform into like more of a 3D shape, especially when it's like
Mhm.
right up against another shape like that, and it's
Yeah.
just I'm enjoying myself. This is the kind of stuff that I would watch like in the background, you know, when you're not supposed to be scrolling through Instagram, when you're supposed to be sleeping. You know,
Exactly.
I would like to just flip through tons of videos like this, watching you make shapes pop out of the canvas. That would,
Say no
you know.
more. Say no more. That's a sign that I know what I need to be doing now.
In a month we're gonna have the new Hank ASMR and
Yeah.
satisfaction video series, letting us watch the shapes come to life before bedtime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll say now as a disclaimer, I am not responsible for any lack of sleep. You guys are solely responsible for
You
that.
want this series, you got to sign a contract saying you won't be
Exactly.
mad. You
I do not come after me for the lack of sleep. Absolutely.
So you add noise here, and this is really great. So, um, you the and fill me in real quick. Are you using a brush that has texture added to it and then adding more noise, or are you using a soft round brush that's a little more smooth and then adding the texture to it with the noise feature?
Yeah, so it's the latter. So I am simply just using a very, very soft brush. As you can see, it's really right in the general brushes on Photoshop. So this is
Hmm.
this soft round one. Um, my my older technique was I was using like the texture brush to create that, um, to create that effect. But of course, you live, you learn, you find ways to do things a lot simpler. So I switched it to where I would just use a soft brush, and it makes it much easier to kind of build up value and kind of add that depth and things like that. And then just using the simple noise filter and just adjusting that to give it kind of that grainy look. So you can see how everything here is kind of starting off very solid, very kind of, not
Hmm.
say flat, but we definitely just keeping it very simple. And then just that effect and adding that noise just kind of gives it that grainy feeling
Yeah.
of like something you can like reach out and actually touch.
I love it. And do you find that the like you're talking about building up as you're doing here with that dark color on the, you know, the kind of mid tone to the light
Mhm.
color of the shape, do you find that when you add the noise afterward that the I guess the transition of the texture is a lot more cohesive and consistent rather than laying it down with texture in the first
Mhm.
place right at the forefront? Because that seems to me like what would be the big plus there is that like you have this even transition of that noise rather than trying not to paint too much of the noise when you
Mhm.
go in at first, is what I, you know, kind of take away from that. And I think I see it too. It's just like this very nice, smooth transition
Mhm.
with it there.
Correct. Yeah, and the effect really allows the colors that we're layering up to kind of bleed through from the bottom
Mm.
a little bit. And of course, like the soft brush does a really nice job of kind of merging those colors together. But in these pieces, like even if we were to zoom in into this beard, like even though it is kind of speckled and it's not like very, very fine, but you
Hmm.
can also see a little bit of how those colors are bleeding through. So instead of them being on top of each other, they're actually just very close side by side, that it
Mm.
gives this kind of nice, this nice blend together. And I almost think of it as kind of you know, if you're knitting or if you look at like a piece of fabric or anything like that, it's like if you look at it like through like a microscope or something like that, you
Hmm.
can, they're never like in each other or like,
Hmm.
you know, on top of each other. They're like really beside each other. It just, they're so fine that, you know,
Mm.
as you from a regular point of view, it looks like one big piece, but in reality, they're actually just like really close to each other.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what that effect does to this. And if there's ever a piece where I'm really, I guess you say prideful on making sure people see how many colors are in this one specific spot,
Hmm.
the texture or adding the noise effect really allows the colors to bleed through and kind of give that illusion um, that, you know, that we're trying to, you know, show off in a
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. I love it. I love it. I love it. That's really great insight there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the beard, I feel like with that texture applied, I just watched you do it with a brush, but it looks like matte
Hmm.
plastic to me. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like it has that like that nice matte smooth texture to it, and I just think
Exactly.
that's so crazy. That's so
Hmm.
cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and even just having these, you know, printed, my favorite like medium is on matte paper. So
Mm.
like posters of these,
Oh
just being
yeah.
able to feel it and see and the texture, it just it's chef kiss.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Absolutely. But I'm going through and I'm adding the noise as I go. Usually this is kind of the last step. That
Mhm.
way I can just kind of select everything and just add it in one case. But I think it's just more fun specifically for the stream to kind of see how everything is, you know, coming to life. And you can already see here, like we started where it was flat, and this is
Mhm.
already the head that's already put together. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Looking
yeah.
good. Looking good. Yeah, it looks now like me, before seeing the illustration and the shapes now, I feel like I can see like a 3D head
Hmm.
up there versus, and it kind of is nice too that you've added like the finishing touch noise. So now we can see like the before and after and what's in
Hmm.
store for the rest of the elements.
Exactly. Exactly. And just to make this, you know, process, you know, much smoother, it's definitely important to kind of understand some of the short keys. So you can see I'm switching through a lot of different tools by not
Mhm.
even going through like a toolbar, but just simply using my keyboard. um but you know, some of my favorites is definitely with like the color scheme here, like these like two color palettes that we have here, and
Mhm.
just simply clicking X and just switching between two of them. So if I need a dark and a highlight on the same with the same color, or
Mhm.
any other color from that matter, I can just simply switch through those. And of course that makes it a lot easier if I need to say, oh, I need to make this part a little bit lighter. I don't have to go all the way to my color palette, you know, find the
Mm.
color that I want. I can just simply hit a short key, and it makes that, you know, that process much easier.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think, utilizing the shortcut keys, and honestly, if because I see that you also have like your layers moved around and you have your brushes over where I personally usually have my layers, and you've really customized your workspace specifically to suit your style. And I think that that's really great that you make Photoshop work for you.
Yeah.
Like you've styled it so that you're not lost and you've got your go-to stuff. And I think that plays into like knowing those hotkeys, organizing that
Mhm.
workspace means that you have more time to enjoy the process and you're
Absolutely.
not hunting for things, you know.
Absolutely.
So I love
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah, and it's a learning curve. You know, if there's anyone that's not, you know, necessarily used to, you know, finding using hotkeys and shortcuts like that, but
Mhm.
it's worth the exploration and, you know, trial and error. Like I can tell you that a lot of projects that I do now that I was doing way back then
Mhm.
takes me legit like a quarter of the time now.
Oh yeah.
Just simply because of learning those keys. And you know, a lot of the menus, like if you go up and, you know, you select something, they have them all on right next to each like selection that you want to have.
Mhm.
If it's something that you use like multiple times, like take a time and like, all right, I'm gonna instead of going up here, let me practice this hotkey. And you're probably gonna get it wrong the first couple
Mhm.
of times, but that's okay. That's the beauty of Command Z
Mhm.
and the Command S, so that you save everything. But that just allows you to move so much more efficiently and being able to really, you know, cut your work time in half, and you can really enjoy like making more um, without having to worry about too much time being taken away from you.
Yeah, I agree. And I remember, learning the hotkeys for the first time, and I think I had a like post-it notes on my monitor,
Mm.
or at one point I had a wall right behind my main monitor, so I had like a piece of paper taped to the wall. And what I did was I figured out like what are the tools that I'm using most often when I open Photoshop, and what are the
Hmm.
hotkeys for those? You
There
know,
you go.
what am I going to use every day? And then I would just add that hotkey for that tool I used all the time to the list. And then as I got more familiar and more comfortable with the tools and added more tools to the list that I use, I would, maybe add another hotkey. But, I feel like learning those, it does. Sometimes it can cut your time in half. Sometimes it
Yeah.
can, and I think that it could be daunting, especially if there's folks in the chat today who are, newer to Photoshop. And maybe that's a daunting part of the process. Don't feel like you have to learn everything all at once, as Hank said. Just, what do you use? What do you
Yeah.
use? And use that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, future creative you is going to thank you so much
Mm.
for taking the time out there. And, again, like, of course, with everything else, depending on kind of the space you're in, if you're serving clients or whatever the case may be, speed can be your best friend. I
Yeah.
think if depending on how you maneuver, as like if you're doing this as an entrepreneurial state, or if you're working a job or that's kind of pushed with time,
Hmm.
speed can definitely be a benefit for you, and the things that you can kind of have makes more time for you to actually explore more, and you're able to really think of ideas and not necessarily have to worry about the complication of technology making things harder. So
Yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
make it worth your while for sure.
Do favors for the you of the future. Kind of,
Oh, I like that. That's a t-shirt.
Yeah.
That is a t-shirt. I love that.
I feel like that's, if you think about it that way, then you're not doing tedious chores, you're just
Yeah,
helping you out later on, you know?
exactly. It's like making your bed up before you leave home. It's like
Hmm.
it,
Hmm.
it's not a great chore. I
Yeah,
personally
I
sometimes I don't
forget all
enjoy
the
it,
time.
but when you get back home, you're like, I made the bed up. It's
Hmm.
gonna feel so great to get back in.
Yep. Yep. I make my bed like I name my layers. I
Felt. That is felt.
I'm so excited about the details on the basketball here. You have no idea. I've been waiting for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, the basketball is actually one of the most challenging pieces things I've done. I've drawn similar pieces like this in the
Hmm.
past, and the basketball is usually like kind of the biggest, I guess you can say, hill to climb. It's fun overall, but it's fun. But I'm excited to be able to do this with a bunch of eyes watching now as I figure it out.
Well, because I mean, it's a sphere, but it also has, all the different sections of the basketball. So do you
Exactly.
intend to okay, that's why, okay. So you're going to do all the different stuff and make it
Hmm.
extra, extra. I love it. I'm excited. This is even
Yeah.
more exciting than I assumed it was going to be.
Yeah.
Wade's
Yeah.
typing the eye emojis in the chat.
Absolutely. No, this is definitely probably one of my most challenging things to illustrate, at least in this style.
Mhm.
But learning a little bit of this technique of like, and I was like taking like I used to take like quick product shots of basketballs just to see how the light
Mhm.
kind of bounces off of it. It was for school, but who knew it was gonna help me
Mhm.
like
Yeah, yeah.
10 years down the road.
Mhm.
um but it helped really kind of like see some of the shapes and show like, okay, if lights come in this space, like these lines are not just sitting on top of the ball, like they're actually inside the ball, and those like different shapes are actually poking out. So how does
Yeah.
light bend like around that, so that's kind of where we're going in, and kind of like if we're kind of focused on the light coming in this way,
Mhm.
which is very similar to how we have the crown and basically everything else. So we have the kind of this light coming down. We'll just focus on, basically the shadows of the ball more on like this side
Mhm.
of the ridges here. So
Loving it,
yeah.
loving it. And you said earlier that you're no Rembrandt, but here you are talking about bending light. And you know, you got to give yourself more credit on that, man.
You're right.
You are a painter, sir.
You're right. I'm gonna start shortcoming myself.
Yeah, don't do that because this is great.
You're right. Yeah, but like I said, we're just going in and we're just adding kind of just some of those ridges. We're not gonna put too much up here because that light is going to bend on here, and I'm just going in, just adding a little bit. But you can already start seeing like it's really starting to come together, like it's, you know, these ain't really flat shapes.
And it's not, you know, my first instinct might have been to put that, you know, that thick line all the way down, but you are kind of fading it. Like the closer it gets to that light point up at the top of the ball, you have it kind of fading, you know, so it's not harsh all the way up to the top, you know, which I think is a really nice touch.
Exactly. And I'm also playing with a little bit of like up here with the opacity of the brush and just some of the smoothing. Because I'm not necessarily using a tablet. I'm actually using a mouse.
But this makes Wait a second. You have been using a mouse this whole time?
Yeah, I always be hesitant to say that because you're like, what? Like, why are you
that
using
is
a mouse?
So impressive. That is insane to me. Okay, finish what you were saying. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That just
no, you're good.
blew my mind just now, but I need to hear about this.
Yeah, so it's funny, but so before I invested into getting like a Wacom tablet, I used to use a mouse all the time. And what I learned is that, you know, there's a lot of tools in Photoshop that actually make using your mouse not as bad as it's, you know, as it sounds. So playing, like kind of experimenting a little bit with these like opacity tools, the flow tool and the smoothing tool actually makes certain shapes a lot easier to draw. Now it is a little bit of a technique with the mouse to kind of get it there. And you can also see like, you know, it's not as smooth as it may be with a Wacom tablet, but because like this kind of drawing style is a little bit, not necessarily rough, but a little bit loose in a sense. And of course we're relying on texture to really like tell the rest of the story. You know, I'm not looking for like really tight perfection. I'm just looking for enough to where if you're looking at this, you know, from, you know, 100% view, like you're not necessarily paying too much attention to the details, like kind of, or the imperfections, so to say. You're more of like, all right, the bigger picture is there. I understand what I'm seeing. I'm liking what I'm seeing. And if, you know, if you're looking for flaws like that, that means you're looking for flaws, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This woke the chat up. Let me tell you, we got our lurkers coming to the surface here to chime in. And number one, I think that, you know, what you're saying about you use the tools you have, and that's what you get comfortable using, and you use them like a master. This is insane. I would not have thought, if I had just read that somewhere, I would not have thought that that was real if you hadn't just picked your mouse up and showed us, you know, this is what I'm working with. But Stony in chat says, I also use my mouse most of the time. Fabio says, what can he do with a trackpad then? We can't give him a trackpad. He'll be too powerful. We can't give him a stylus or a trackpad. We need to just keep him contained to the mouse.
That's so funny. That is hilarious. And I'm so glad, at least I'm glad this is not 20, I want to say like 2016 or 2017, because we'll definitely be on a trackpad. 1000% would be on the trackpad.
I would love to hear from everyone else in chat. Like, what is your digital art tool of choice? I personally, I use I have the 16 inch Cintiq so that I can paint on my screen working on the desktop. And then I also use, actually more often than my Cintiq, I paint in Fresco on my iPad. So I've got like the Apple Pencil. You're working with your mouse, and I think Sony was saying mouse as well. Let us know, folks. I want to hear from you guys. What are your tools, your art weapons of choice?
Exactly. What do you go to war with?
Yeah. Battle the canvas with what?
Absolutely. No, it's, yeah. And again, no judgment pass. I do next year, whatever is, you know, feels comfortable to you, like use it. Trust me. Like, when people are asking like what you use, is more because like they are impressed by what they're seeing. So
yeah, that's why I asked. I was like, you know, I was super impressed, just because looking at it, I could not do something this amazing with a mouse, because it doesn't come naturally to me to do something like that. But whatever you use to make art, if you're making art with it, then that's good enough. You know, if
Exactly.
you create with it, then that's what you create with.
Exactly.
We got some lefties, some left-handed mice users, which is cool. Other people using the mouse. Umacorn saying working with a mouse. Gareth uses a stylus and the trackpad. Fabio says using a very tired Wacom tablet for now. I feel that.
Yeah.
I got my Cintiq, but I used the same Wacom tablet, like an Intuos tablet, for years and years and years, and I got it as a hand-me-down from somebody else. So I was using a very tired Wacom tablet for a long time. I feel it. I feel it.
Yeah. Nah, I understood. You gotta use what you got. You gotta use it. Well, my dad used to say, like, use it until the wheels start fall off. So
Oh yeah. I can't justify buying a new anything if I still have a perfectly good one to be using. You know,
exactly.
I feel bad. I'm like, I can't get a new tablet. If I
I
have one
understand.
that works, I'm gonna need it to fall apart while I'm painting on stream
Exactly.
before
Exactly. I need to
it's
be
gonna
on
have to
fire.
embarrass me first.
Exactly. Exactly. That is literally like the standard to like justify a new one. Like it has to
Yeah.
literally be on fire.
Yeah. Yep.
Like is it smoking yet? All right,
Yeah.
then it's still good to
Yeah,
go.
right. It's still good. I mean, careful though, because that happened to me one time. I went to live stream and something in my computer started smoking one time, and
Oh
I
gosh.
about had a heart attack. It scared me half
Oh
to death.
gosh.
So it's happened before, and you know what? Finally got me a new computer.
Hey, hey,
Replace my computer.
hey, it makes sense. It makes
Nice and
sense.
new. The other one could not be used. It simply could not be used any longer. I got all my use out of it.
I understand. I understand. Well, awesome. So yeah, so you see we have our pretty much our basketball in a good spot.
Looks
I'll come
good.
back and add the texture in there, but again, we're keeping it very simple just for the sake of this character here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm loving it. I think it, you know, all the detail and stuff you added came together for such a iconic basketball shape there. It just looks so good. And now, one of my favorites where we paint with one piece that's like the same base color as the background. I love this. I'm gonna just settle in.
Yeah, I'm actually going to, let me see. I think I'm gonna take a step back and let's merge some of these because I have and you can probably see here, I have kind of the finger,
Oh,
like the
gotcha.
index finger and the thumb and the arm on two separate layers. But what I think I'm just going to, let's actually merge these layers here. And then that way we can, we'll just color it all together.
Nice.
Exactly. Just try to make life a little bit easier, you know?
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Yep. And again, we're just really just repeating the same process throughout. And it's pretty much cookie cutter after you kind of understand the shape and you have pretty much the frame built. So we don't have to recreate the wheel or anything. Just once, you know, you find your rhythm and you know the colors that you want to use, you just kind of rinse and repeat. Which is the case of a lot of these characters. Like usually I try to start around like the head area, specifically like the eyes and the lips. Those usually are my like starting jump off points, because those can set the tone for everything else. And if those, you know, turn out well, then I can feel pretty confident about the rest of the piece.
Yeah, and I imagine that once you get those boxes checked as far as the, you know, you got everything in order, coupled with the, you know, what we talked about earlier, having your workspace and your short keys in order, I imagine that this process can just feel really satisfying and even meditative as you go along. And I feel like that's like so incredible to have, like to be doing what you do, you know, and just find that good groove and really get into it. And I think that that's I feel like not a lot of people can say that they can feel that when they work on a daily basis, and that sounds like a blessing to me, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely a meditation. You know, I think if for those that's out there that's finding it, like if you ever find that space that you're in, like try to remember your surroundings, like what was going on at that moment you were, you know, in that zone. You know, it may be like a certain playlist that you may have played, or it might have been something you ate, or maybe like something you may have read. But just taking like mental notes of what that, look like can potentially spark that type of feeling again
Mhm.
when you're trying to look for that, that zone. And some people have rituals, some people that's like just have things that have to be in, a certain place for them to, kind of get back in that zone, which is 100% fine.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that anyone that's struggling to find those, spots of zen, um just try different things. Like if you find a ritual that you can continue to practice over and over again, if it puts you in the space where you feel the most creative, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Great advice. Great advice.
mm,
I feel like if you found, your meditative place, this is also great advice just to return to because sometimes you lose it, right? You ever
yeah,
felt that feeling where like I've been trucking along so well up until now, and all of a sudden I can't find that groove,
yeah,
just kind of refresh your mind about the things that help you to create and cultivate a really great working space, I think is always great to revisit. Get a little
100%,
refresh.
100%.
Gosh, this is starting to look so good.
Yeah.
I just love it. Everything, the way everything pops out, and I'm torn though because I can't tell if this is one of the ones that's tasty or not, or if it's one of the ones that's just 3D. They're both equally good, but I'll give you the final word at the end rather than not.
Okay.
I want to eat it.
Okay. Gotcha. I'll just live in suspense until then.
Because these are the real questions.
Yeah,
These
there
are
are
this is the
questions.
real info that we
The
need.
QT&A, the questions
Yes,
that need
yes,
answers.
yes.
I understand. Yeah. So I'm gonna live in the suspense until we get to that point.
All right, all
Yeah, so
right.
hopefully I can finish in time that way we can we can uncover that
We got
as well.
about, let's see, I would say that we have about 20 minutes
Okay.
left before we take off. So we can do, it looks like we've got our legs left basically,
Hmm.
which is that's a lot of work that you've done for us, in just a stream. That's pretty crazy because and also you've been adding that noise as we go, so you've been like finalizing pieces as you're
Hmm.
working through the piece as a whole. So I just find that to be really impressive. Stoney's laughing in the chat. Thank you, Stoney, for laughing at my jokes. I appreciate it. Makes me feel good, makes me feel
There
like
you
I'm on
go.
the right track.
I'm here all week.
Yep. But I literally am. So I just,
Hilarious.
Oh
No,
man.
absolutely. Yeah, I think I feel pretty good. I think we can get at least into a decent spot. With these, I try not to um overinvest too much and into one piece.
Mhm.
There's of course, like I can definitely empathize with, a lot of creatives, like, we want to put our all into everything. And of course,
Mhm.
because it speaks about us. Um, but me personally, in the space that I'm in now, it's more, I appreciate more of like doing things kind of, I would say probably in volume
Mhm.
that allows me to learn as I go. And like I
Mhm.
said, because this piece here specifically is a recreation of one that I've already done. Like
Mhm.
I've done one back in I want to say 2019,
Mhm.
very similar, but because doing it, I was able to kind of see like, if I would do this, I would have did this like a lot different.
Mhm.
And of course, with LeBron, who he is, made history, so definitely made an excuse to be like, okay, let me revisit this and like let's see like how much fun we can have with what we learned so far. So that kind of gives
Yeah.
me a little bit of freedom to kind of explore things I haven't thought about exploring before.
And that's I think that's a really really healthy practice,
Hmm.
is like because I feel like that a lot, and I'm sure, let us know in the chat, I'm sure that you folks have felt this before, is like you do something and you finish it and you put that time and effort into it, but you kind of, I mean, we're maybe not a little, maybe we're a lot hypercritical of ourselves as creatives
Yeah.
sometimes, and I feel like I pick at my work mentally sometimes where I see that thing that's like, I could have done that better. But
Mm-hmm.
after a while, like, do you really want to spend more and more time on it, overworking, whatever? And I feel like sometimes I have to just say it's good enough and then put it on the back burner for like, if I wanted to do something like this again, how would I approach it better? And then make an effort every once in a while to why not do that? Why not choose a
Yeah.
wonderful moment for that project to, concept to make a return and do it better than before and present it better than before? I think that's a super healthy practice because, you put a project down, that's it. And then in the future, you apply serious growth. I think that's
Exactly.
awesome.
Exactly. And even tying back to, your previous question about, how illustrators can show their work, that's a great opportunity to tell that story of how you grow as an artist, like
Oh
how
yeah.
your thinking evolves.
Mm.
And I think it's super important to document as much as you can. Like, it doesn't even have to be for the sake of like social media or putting it out there, but if you feel comfortable doing it, or even if you don't feel comfortable doing it, I think it's a great practice just to get into the habit of sharing where you are, where you're going, and then you could always recap of where you came from.
Oh
Like you
yeah.
said, like if you're able to see a project that you worked on like way back in the day, and
Mhm.
then you decide to redo it, and you do it way better than you ever expected before, like you can show a before and after, and that allows people who are either growing as fans of your work or would like to commission you for work or whatever the case may be, they can see that, oh, this is an artist that knows how to learn from themselves. They're
Mm.
able to evolve and like recreate things and make things better, and that makes people more confident or comfortable working with you long term, because they can
Oh
believe
yeah.
in the idea that you're going to evolve
And
them, like,
adapt.
and
Yeah.
adapt. Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's an excellent point because, especially if you're the kind of person who's looking to partner with large companies as uh, either as like part of the team or as like an individual
Hmm.
illustrator freelance who does recurring work for a brand. I think that, putting that kind of energy out there, putting that best foot forward in that
Hmm.
way really does, as you say, it shows that company that you can evolve and that
Hmm.
by approaching you, they can be confident in your ability to grasp a new concept or a new idea that they might pose to you. They're not just getting what they see, they're getting someone who can do what they see, but also could build something unique for them. Um,
100%.
which is, I think, very valuable if that's what you're looking for.
1000%.
These look so good. And I love, there's another one of those moments where the skin tone there, it's so satisfying. I'm not going to get over this. It's like so cool just to see this pop out. And we have, let's see, we have in about 10 minutes, we'll probably start wrapping up to leave a few minutes for us to kind of go back and do maybe a recap of your thoughts on the project. And then
Mhm.
we'll do some closing links and let everybody know where they can find you.
Okay.
So about 10 minutes. Just don't
Okay.
want to ambush you with the end of the stream there.
No
Let you get
worries.
into the zone and not give you warning.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. I'm actually gonna go in and hyperdrive a little bit just to see how far I can get. But I think we're covering some good ground. So
Oh yeah, you're really,
either way.
yeah, 100%. You got it going here. Also, Stony, I've started working on the projects from 2 years ago now to fix what I didn't see there. That's such a good idea.
Oh, that's
Yes.
awesome.
I
That's
frequently
awesome.
like to do repaints personally.
Mm,
Like try to approach it like, how would I fix this? Sometimes I find that the things I didn't paint well in the past or the things I found issues with, when I try to repaint them, I still have the same issues. And I think that that's indicative of like a moment that you can pinpoint in your own journey too. Like, have I been working on this? Have I
mm,
been figuring this out in the last year? Can I take a couple days to like keep trying this? And I think it also can really point out what truly are my weak points when it comes to
mhm.
my technique and approach. So definitely that's a great idea, Stony. I think there's a lot of learning there, a lot of improvement
Yeah.
to be had. And Gareth says, as the saying goes, look back to look forward. Yes.
Ooh,
Yes, look back to look forward. We got a lot of
I like that.
t-shirts
I know
today.
a
We
lot of
got
t-shirts
a
right
lot of
here.
good t-shirts today.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's awesome. So definitely salute to you. It takes a lot of, humility to do that as well, to
Mm,
like go back a couple years back on projects, like that's,
Mhm.
yeah, that is very brave. Very
Sometimes I
brave.
like to pretend the work I did 2 or 3 years ago doesn't exist. That's,
Yeah.
that's a lot of
Fair.
you're brave.
Fair.
I'm like,
Fair.
you know what? I go back sometimes. I just don't go back to like, my DeviantArt days where I was like trying out digital art for the first. I don't see it. I don't see that. I don't know what that is. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. I see it now. It's 2025. You're like, what? What LeBron Fuzzy on
Yeah,
Adobe Live? What? I don't
never
know what
heard
you're
of that.
talking about.
Who's Val?
Who's
Who's that?
Val?
Who is that? I don't know
What?
what
What?
you're talking about. Nope.
You must
Nope.
have me confused. You
Yeah.
got get somebody else.
Yeah. You gotta find Jax's DeviantArt days. Hey man, I did a lot of like fan art back in the day, and I was like, I'm gonna post it on DeviantArt because this is the greatest place in the world to post professional work, and I would post it, and I thought that, that feeling, I think I'm posting the greatest work ever that I've ever done, and then you look
Of
back
course.
that far and you're like, who am I? Why?
Oh. No, I get it.
I have that feeling sometimes. So, if it's before 2019, I do not see it.
There you go.
I don't.
There you go.
I got a few year cutoff.
There you go. It doesn't exist unless like someone comes up and wants to offer like a huge check for it. Like, yeah, I remember that. I know what you're
Oh, I
talking about
definitely
now.
did that one. How much?
That's all.
Yeah,
That's all me.
for sure. Sony says I could show you a very bad drawing in Illustrator that I showed people and was excited about. That's, those are the ones that are cringy for you to think about, or the ones you add to the list of pieces you will redo and improve, because I think it rids you of that cringy feeling, right?
Mhm.
It's you offer yourself redemption for that piece. Once you have the knowledge to improve, that's how you choose.
Exactly.
Jack, I'm hoping my DeviantArt is dead and gone. I haven't even checked it out. I haven't even looked to see if it's still there. I don't even want to Google it just in case it gets out in the internet universe and people find it. That's
Oh gosh.
I don't want record.
Right.
Do you have
you gotta
like
put in the vault.
Do you have like old styles maybe that you did like way before the Fuzzies that are, like difficult for you to piece in your mind as like part of your body of work? I mean, you don't have to talk about it. You don't have to tell us where we can find it, but like I'm sure you weren't always doing Fuzzies. What was, maybe some of the first adventures into the digital art space you did?
No, that's actually a great question. I really wish I had more than like 20 minutes to talk through that.
I know. I'm sorry. I keep giving you these big old questions.
I can dive so deep into that. But no, actually, I try my best not to archive too much on my Instagram specifically. Mm-hmm. So if everyone wants to go there and they scroll just all the way down, I do have works that are like, man, I want to say works all the way back to like maybe like 2013, 2014 really? In the case, just still there. And but you can see just a lot of like types of things that I've explored. I really don't have, there really wasn't anything that I'll say that I didn't enjoy making, mm-hmm. but I think there were just some things that like, as technology advanced and things like, being able to do things like on your iPad, like with Fresco and anything else, mm-hmm. The style kind of evolved with that, just because it made it so much easier to be like, okay, I'm gonna go sit on my couch and make something happen, and I don't have to sit at my desk and have my computer sound like a helicopter.
Yeah.
Both of these on there, so
it's gonna take flight because
exactly. So yeah, there's a few there that I try to keep live for literally just for that sake specifically. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of reminds me, if I ever feel like I'm in like a slump or feel like I'm not like being as creative as I feel like I should be or could be, mm-hmm. It's always good to take like a trip down memory lane and be like, you done some stuff. Right. You're doing all right. You all right.
The best way, I think, because we can be hard on ourselves as artists, the only positive comparison I feel like, I mean, obviously there's helpful comparison when you're, comparing to what else is out there, but When it comes to critiquing yourself and trying not to beat yourself up about the changes and the growth and everything, I think the best way to compare is just to compare to yourself yesterday.
Yeah.
I feel like you'll always find positives if you compare that way instead of focusing so much on what you didn't do. Just what am I doing now? What was I doing then? And I find that when I remember to do that, I feel I feel good about my my movement through my art journey. Um,
Exactly.
for
I
sure.
love that.
Wade and Umacorn and everybody are having a good time in chat right now. They're having a great time. And what's great is that someone's on their DeviantArt days right now. If we're lucky, we're all growing. Also, DeviantArt is still around. It is still around. I mostly met my profile specifically. Like I hope
Right.
it's been buried. But yeah, I think that's great to point out too. Is that other people are in their early stages too, and I think that if we can't always remember to set a good example for ourselves, we could do it for other people who look at
Exactly.
our art and share that process, because we could help people who are where we were when we were running around not knowing what the heck we were doing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Be that for
exactly.
somebody else if you can't do it for you right this moment.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
you just trucked right through this. You really did. Because we've got about 5 minutes left, and you are
Okay.
tying up the last bit of that shoe. And I think that's the whole character. You
Pretty
really,
much.
wow. That's awesome. But it is looking great. We're gonna get the links in the chat where everyone can check out you on social media. And you can let us know kind of where you would love to direct folks to take a look at your work. But first, we can do, if you want to finish up your shoe, we can do a little recap of what we worked on today. Take a look. And then we'll do our parting words. Yeah, we got
Our
the
parting
Fuzzies Instagram in
words.
the chat. Heck yeah, let's go. Oh,
No,
this is
this
good.
has been awesome. I'm actually working faster than I usually have because I'm really excited to show y'all this. But no, I've been soaking in like literally what you said. Like that's literally like the probably the best thing I think any creator can hear is like you always going to be a step further, than the first time you try something. So like continue to make, continue to try. It's all right to be down every now and then, but just don't stay down. Like
yeah.
don't stay there. Like don't stay there. Like you got to keep making, because you never know. It literally can take one piece that you create that literally changes the trajectory of your whole like creative career.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
you never know where that piece is going to come from.
And you never know which one it's going to be, and sometimes it's
Never
the
know.
one you hate the most.
Oh,
That the world is like, oh
always,
yeah,
always.
like
And
that one
always the
really.
one that you be like, man, like what? You telling me I spent all this time on this and you chose this?
I spent 18 hours on this painting of Kylo Ren, but you want to pay me for the scribble of Baby Yoda I did in 30
Yeah.
seconds?
Exactly. It's like, all right, cool, whatever.
All right, that's fine.
Hey, whatever it
That's
is. All
cool.
right. It is what it is.
So yeah, we oh man, this is looking so good. Definitely give Hank a follow on the Fuzzies Instagram. We got the link to Hank Designs in the chat as well. We got the basketball and the clap emojis flooding the chat right now. I'm gonna have to get in on this as well. Get this hype train going. Also, just as a kind of a closing, I know I am super inspired right now because we have been drawn with Hank this whole time, but we have got more content coming up at the end of after our show here today. We have got our power prompts with Cody Bear coming up, where you can dive in and take part in a challenge as well. Maybe apply some of your Fuzzies knowledge that you have now to create, some stuff for power prompts. You can also head over and grab more inspiration from Hank's Behance as well, if you want to check out that. Also, great reference for case studies. We've been talking about case studies like crazy and presenting your work today. So check out Hank's Behance because the case studies over there are literally some of the coolest I've ever seen, truly.
Thank you.
Really, really cool. And as we tie everything up, do you have any parting words of wisdom for us today, Hank? Any last minute things you'd like to share before we head out for the day?
Hmm. Keep making. I
Mm,
think that's probably the simplest way I can put it. Just keep making, keep enjoying what you're doing. We're in a really great time to where you can really like create the life that you want, making the things that you want. So definitely just keep making. I think we'll keep it
mm.
as simple as that.
I think that's a excellent point. And also, I feel like we have made such good friends, like here on Adobe Live and everything. And if you need help staying motivated, this is a great place to hang out, to
Absolutely.
remind yourself to keep making and remind other people to keep making too. You know, do our part, help each other, and keep the world beautiful with artwork. Um,
Absolutely.
it's been an absolute pleasure hosting you today, Hank. It's never a dull moment hanging out with you, but this was particularly fun. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course. So happy you guys had me.
Yeah, it was a blast. You can always check out the replays on Behance here or on YouTube if you guys want to refer back to the stream. Please don't go anywhere because we got power prompts coming up next. It's going to be a blast, and we will see you another time, folks. Adios, everybody.